My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was in first grade. So she went through chemotherapy and then went into remission for a couple of years. And then she ended up passing away when I was a freshman in high school. I'm Lori's daughter, and I'm the founder of Lori's Hands.
So sophomore year, Sarah was walking down the green one day and was kind of struck by inspiration. and just it's one of those ideas, that comes along and you can't ignore it. So she just started talking about it with us, and we, as her friends, kind of became the first volunteers.
She just had very, pure motivations of wanting to help people in the memory of her mom. She had wanted to do something in her mom's memory, and this was just sounded like the coolest, easiest idea to impact, so many people who need help.
I, like Jen, started out our sophomore year of college. We were both good friends of Sarah's. She approached us with the idea of starting a student volunteer organization to serve people in the community who were going through a similar situation as her family had gone through when her mom was sick. And we all thought it was a great idea and jumped on board, and it just grew from there.
As I was walking down the green, I called my aunt, who had also been a breast cancer and ovarian cancer patient, and I said, when you were sick, would it have been helpful for you to have people around to help with some of those everyday things, like take care of groceries and cleaning and just everything that you normally have to deal with? I happen to think that, college students have such odd schedules, and they tend to have, time on their hands that people in other stages of life don't necessarily have. So I approached one of my nursing professors and I said, would it be possible to start an organization so that UD students could go out and help patients with the everyday things that might be difficult because of their illnesses?
Lori's Hands builds mutually beneficial partnerships between community members with chronic illness and college students, fostering empathy, connection, and resilience. Students provide practical assistance to support community members' independence at home, and community members share their health and life experiences to support students' learning.
After being founded as a student organization at the University of Delaware, we became a 501c3 nonprofit organization in 2011. I was privileged to be hired as the organization's first full-time staff person in 2017. After scaling our work in Delaware to include more local colleges and universities, we started launching new chapters around the country in 2020. Across all of our chapters, students are now involved as general volunteers and through internships, coursework, assistantships, and special projects. Students benefit by gaining real-world experience relevant to future careers, by developing a deeper understanding of community health and aging, by being more strongly connected to their campus communities, and more. Simultaneously, community members feel less isolated and alone, improve their home safety and independence, improve their food access, become more physically active, and become better connected to community resources.
Central to our work are our core values. Reciprocity. We develop partnerships with an emphasis on reciprocity. Our students and clients learn from and support each other. Everyone contributes. Equity. We know that health disparities are not inevitable, and we believe equity is achievable. We believe all people can and should age with dignity and independence, regardless of their zip code, race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, or disability and health conditions. We work to address unjust structures and gaps in the system to make that future a reality. Evidence. Evidence shapes our efforts. We use research, best practices, and guidance from our partners to develop programs that work. Intergenerational relationships. We recognize intergenerational relationships as essential to our program and to the community's health and well-being. Similarly, we recognize that the health and well-being of universities and their communities are inextricably linked. Strengths-based. Building on individuals' and communities' resilience. We use a strengths-based approach. We recognize that most people don't want to hand out, but want to be supported in their independence. Dependable. We provide dependable services. Week to week and year to year, the community can rely on us to provide consistent support. Neighborly. We uphold a neighborly culture. We know that routine, social, and practical support is often more valuable than grand gestures.
We are facing a perfect storm. The rate of chronic illnesses is increasing. More adults want to age in place, yet most homes are not designed with accessibility in mind. We have smaller and most dispersed families. Our communities are built with an assumption that residents have the ability to drive, and healthcare costs are increasing, among other issues. As a result, many adults lack support with instrumental activities of daily living. Lori's Hands is filling this gap by training college students to provide social and functional support while also providing a real-world educational experience, aiming to transform healthcare delivery in the future. We are thrilled that you are interested in joining Lori's Hands vision to create a more equitable world in which every person can age with dignity and interconnection in their community, and in which every person's strengths are appreciated and shared. Thank you for your support.
To get started, let's talk about what a chronic illness is. A chronic illness is a long-lasting condition that can be controlled but not cured after diagnosis. Chronic illnesses typically last throughout the course of a lifetime and require ongoing treatment. This is different from an acute illness, which, though often very dangerous and potentially life-threatening, can be treated short-term and cured. When treating chronic illnesses, the focus is symptom management, allowing a person to maintain the best quality of life possible as opposed to curative treatment. Oftentimes, the chronic illness manifests and develops differently for each person. What works for you may not work for me. Care needs to be individualized and managed on a long-term, continuous basis. 4 common stressors associated with chronic illnesses are living with physical effects, which can mean decreased mobility, strength, and other various side effects depending on the illness. Dealing with effects of treatment, which can mean time away from work or even stopping work altogether. Sometimes these side effects can be worse than the symptoms themselves. Mental and emotional impacts, which can mean adjusting to a new way of life, adjusting to a new role in your family, accepting care from others, loss of independence, dealing with uncertainty such as what's going to happen next week or next month. Practical implications of chronic illnesses can vary. Treating and managing chronic illnesses can be expensive. Furthermore, previously enjoyed hobbies may no longer be possible. Those diagnosed may need help with transportation, maintaining their homes, and other daily activities. Chronic diseases are often brought on by a number of complex and interacting factors. It is usually impossible to determine a single cause of a chronic illness. These factors include behavioral, the choices and actions someone takes like diet and exercise, environmental, the conditions of their home, workplace, school, and community, and genetic, the DNA a person is born with. Take a moment now to consider what you know and don't know about the etiology or causes of chronic diseases. As we discuss a few chronic diseases today, consider the multiple factors that may contribute to these and your future clients' conditions. How might the origin or belief around the origin of a person's chronic illness contribute to bias they experience in and outside of the healthcare system? There are many different types of chronic illnesses, each with its own characteristics and symptoms. Let's take a look at some of the specific chronic illnesses you might see as a student with Lori's Hands.
Multiple sclerosis, more commonly known as MS, is a disease that attacks the protective covers of nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord. MS comes in many different forms, and its symptoms vary widely from patient to patient. Some of the most common symptoms include muscle weakness, numbness, dizziness, coordination problems, and cognitive impairments. These symptoms range from mild to severe, with many patients eventually losing their ability to walk or speak. In the past, Lori's Hands students have supported a client living with MS to cook a meal each week. Because MS had affected his mobility, he used a wheelchair. The client appreciated our students' help navigating the kitchen and reaching items in the cabinets. Students enjoyed learning about how he works to manage some of his symptoms, including inflammation with a healthy diet. Take a moment to consider how you might support someone with physical limitations while also respecting their goals and independence. This is called a least restrictive, strengths-based, or person-centered approach.
Parkinson's disease is probably best known for causing tremors of the hands or fingers on one side of the body in older patients. This is usually the first sign of onset. The disease attacks nerve cells in the brain, causing them to die and affecting a person's movement. As Parkinson's progresses, symptoms include severe tremors, slowed movement, muscle rigidity, postural instability, and flattened affect, or difficulty displaying or expressing emotions. One of our Lori's Hands clients loved to take a weekly walk with her visiting students. Physical activity can be very helpful for a person managing symptoms of Parkinson's disease, and she said that looking forward to the company during the walks kept her motivated to stay active. If you're out walking in the community with your client, consider asking questions about the neighborhood. You may learn some new things about your college town from a longtime resident. What questions might you have for someone who has lived in your college town for 20, 30, or 40 years?
ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, attacks the body's motor neurons and impairs a person's movement. About half of people living with ALS experience no cognitive symptoms at all. The most common initial symptoms are muscle weakness and cramping, as well as difficulty with speech and swallowing. ALS is a relentlessly progressive and ultimately fatal disease. The first time two of our students visited their Lori's Hands client, who was living with ALS, he held up a whiteboard that said, "Ping pong?" He could no longer speak, but had learned other ways of communicating. Every week after that, for as long as he was able, each visit started with a game of ping pong. If your client has trouble speaking, seeing, or hearing, your Lori's Hand Staff Connect can help you come up with strategies for effectively communicating with them. For now, what strategies can you think of to promote clear communication with your future client?
We are listing cancer as one type of chronic illness here, but in reality, there are many different forms of cancer that affect people in vastly different ways. Cancer in general refers to abnormal and uncontrollable cell growth that can affect any part of the body. The most common types of cancer in the US are breast cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer, and colorectal cancer. If your client has cancer, he or she is likely dealing with the side effects of treatment like chemotherapy or radiation, in addition to symptoms of the illness itself. We have worked with many clients who are undergoing chemotherapy or radiation who have appreciated help with vacuuming, lugging heavy groceries, or raking the yard. These treatments can be really exhausting, so you might find that something that takes you a few minutes to do is a huge relief for your client. When working with someone who is immunocompromised, whether from cancer treatment or another cause, it is important to take exposure risk seriously. If you are sick, talk with your client about rescheduling your visit so you don't expose them to germs. What are some ways you could still provide assistance to your client without coming into close physical proximity with them?
We're going to talk about the next 3 diseases together because they are all chronic conditions affecting a specific organ system in the body. All 3 are very common and symptoms range from mild to severe. The first of these diseases is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, which affects the lungs. In fact, COPD refers to a group of diseases that obstruct airflow and cause breathing difficulties. Most people with COPD have both emphysema and chronic bronchitis. COPD can have a number of different causes such as smoking, asthma, or environmental factors like secondhand smoke, pollution, and fumes. Patients with COPD usually tire easily and may have equipment for oxygen therapy in their homes. A client living with COPD might use an oxygen tank to support their breathing. If you're curious about the tools your client uses to manage their health, it's okay to respectfully ask questions about what it's like to use them, if insurance covers the cost of them, or what challenges the client has using them. Our clients are volunteers with Lori's Hands, as you are, and are willing to share their health experiences with you. When getting to know your client, it is important not to make assumptions about the cause of their disease. Oftentimes, chronic conditions develop due to a complex mix of behavioral, genetic, and environmental causes. When we assume we know the cause of the disease and emphasize a person's individual responsibility for developing a disease, we are holding a bias against them. Reflect on the biases you may have about COPD or other chronic conditions and consider how you might approach your client and their health with an open mind. Congestive heart failure, or CHF, means that a person's heart doesn't pump blood as well as the body needs it to. Patients with CHF usually experience fatigue, shortness of breath, and swelling of the legs. Symptoms can be brought on or worsened by exercise or overnight during sleep. An important part of managing CHF is planning for periods of activity followed by periods of rest throughout the day to ensure a person has adequate energy to do the things they want and need to do. Students can be very helpful in assisting clients living with CHF with high energy activities like yard work. One of our clients had CHF and was no longer able to drive. She would stock up on frozen meals when she could find a neighbor to shop for her. When our students started visiting, she was thrilled to start following her healthcare provider's recommendations for a lower sodium diet because she could depend on fresh groceries each week. Often the work our students do is simple, but it has a huge impact. CHF is a great example of the intersection between genetics, behavior, and environment. Consider how these three factors may contribute to a person's CHF diagnosis and ability to manage their treatment.
The third disease in this group is chronic kidney disease, or CKD. In the early stages of CKD, patients may not even notice symptoms. In later stages, however, the kidneys shut down and lose their ability to filter waste from the body. The latest stage, often called end-stage renal disease, is ultimately fatal without frequent dialysis or a kidney transplant. Dialysis is an intensive and expensive procedure that takes over the process of filtering bodily fluids in the absence of functioning kidneys. Find out from your client what the rhythm of their days and weeks is like. Someone who needs dialysis, for example, may go to an outpatient facility for treatment several times a week. Talk to your client about how you can arrange your visits to accommodate their schedule and any periods of fatigue they may have during the day. Clients living with CKD often depend on medical transportation services to get to and from their dialysis appointments. Many Lori's Hands clients no longer drive due to functional limitations. Because our communities are often designed around private automobile use, individuals who don't drive can become extremely isolated and face significant barriers to accessing healthcare, food, and other community resources. With this in mind, what is the significance of Lori's Hands students visiting clients in their home?
The last chronic condition we're going to touch on here are strokes. Strokes are caused by poor blood flow to the brain, which causes part of the brain to shut down temporarily. The effects of strokes can be permanent and vary depending on the part of the brain that's affected. Generally, strokes affect one side of the body, the side opposite the hemisphere of the brain where the stroke occurs. They can cause weak or stiff muscles and even paralysis. Strokes can also affect speech, vision, balance, and cognition, depending on where in the brain they occur. One of our clients had a stroke and was seeing an occupational therapist for support with his motor skills. She suggested that he play cards to help him regain dexterity. He taught our students to play the card game War, and they started playing together each week. While you cannot act as a professional therapist or clinician, your client may be receiving treatment from one. If your client is seeing a professional like an occupational, speech, or physical therapist, what questions might you want to ask about your client's experience and how can you support their treatment plan? This could be a great opportunity to learn about a profession in practice.
We've discussed some of the chronic illnesses that affect our Lori's Hands clients. There are many others that we could include here, but many of the opportunities for students to support Lori's Hands clients will be similar regardless of a client's specific diagnosis. As we begin to talk further about your visits with clients, remember that one of Lori's Hands' core values is reciprocity. Just as you can support your clients with companionship and assistance around their home, they can help you learn and grow academically, professionally, and personally. With this in mind, student participants do a lot for our clients. We focus our efforts on improving clients' health and well-being related to 5 key areas: food access and nutrition, home safety and suitability, physical activity, community resource access and navigation, and social isolation and loneliness.
Most of what we do involves assisting clients with instrumental activities of daily living or IADLs. Doing this helps clients remain as independent as possible in their own homes due to loss of mobility or decreased stamina. Many individuals with chronic illness need help with grocery shopping, yard work, housework, cooking, laundry, organizing, and other activities. Individuals with functional impairments often depend on a number of informal caregivers to assist with IADLs. Informal caregivers include the friends, family members, neighbors, and others who help with daily tasks and social support. They may live with their loved one or often live separately, but make regular visits, sometimes even daily, to offer support. Informal caregivers shoulder significant responsibilities in caring for our aging and ill population. In fact, the value of unpaid caregiving activities in the United States is drastically higher than the amount spent on paid caregiving. The responsibilities of caregiving can have physical, emotional, and social consequences on the caregiver while simultaneously being a gratifying experience. While your client may live with a caregiver, they may also be supported by a network of loved ones. What questions could you ask your client to understand the roles that different people play in their support network?
In addition to helping with IADLs to support a client's safety and independence at home, students also improve clients' food access and nutrition by getting groceries and preparing meals, clients' physical activity by going for walks together or engaging together in movement inside the home, and clients' access to community resources by researching organizations, helping with technology, and making phone calls. Because many of our clients are not able to drive, having visitors at home is a bright spot during their week. Social isolation and loneliness can be significant threats to people's health and well-being. So companionship is a huge part of what we do. Many of our clients and students become friends and truly enjoy each other's company. We hope this will be true for you too. Again, as you assist your client, they have a lot to offer you too. Our clients are all experts on their own health and diagnosis and see the great benefits in using their disease to provide valuable education to our students. We encourage you to ask questions about your client's health, healthcare support systems, history, and more to help you better understand what it is truly like to live with a chronic condition. Our visits should be client-centered. That means we ask our clients about their goals and support them in whatever ways we can. This is an amazing experience for us as students and also empowering for our clients.
Here are some things that we never do under any circumstances on our visits. Drive or be driven by a client or any member of their household. Provide medical care or advice like organizing pills, administering medication, or applying a bandage. Provide personal care such as bathing, using the restroom, or providing physical assistance. Provide financial assistance like writing checks or paying bills. Share personal or identifying information about our clients with others.
Here's some things to expect when you go out on a visit. Good and bad days. Chronic illnesses may look different every day. For some clients, the weather, sleep cycles, symptom fluctuations, previous day's activities, and a host of other things can make it hard to get through a day and to make the next day a good day. Mobility, concern, and fatigue. This is a common issue most of our clients have faced at one time or another. Some clients have assistive devices such as walkers, canes, wheelchairs, stair lifts, or ramps in their homes to help them manage mobility issues. You may also see healthcare supplies in your client's home or healthcare professionals coming in and out, such as visiting nurses. A new normal. Some of our clients may be newly adjusting to their diagnosis. Remember that what you walk into is not the same as what a client's life has always been like or is like every hour you are not there. A client who is dozing off every afternoon when you arrive may have a rich and active history as a professional and may still be engaged in work and hobbies that they love. People with chronic illnesses often have to pace themselves and prioritize their activities. They may be thinking to themselves, do I want to use my energy to talk on the phone with my friend or to sweep off the front porch? I may not have energy for both.
Next, let's discuss some tips for communicating effectively with your client. First, consider the language you use when speaking with or about your client. Prioritize using person-first language instead of labeling a person as the disease. This means saying a person who has diabetes rather than calling them diabetic. We also want to focus on our client's strengths and capacity. Instead of thinking of our clients as vulnerable or at risk, consider language like under-resourced or historically marginalized that place your client in the context of their experiences. Try to avoid elder speak. Rather than describing your clients as cute or calling them sweetie, senior, or elder, use terms that engender respect like older adult or Mrs., Mr., or mix. When with your client, listen, listen, listen. This is the best thing you can do. Avoid cliches such as, this is all part of a greater plan, or it all work out. Cliches aren't as helpful as being a good listener and empathizing. Instead, you can try saying, I can't imagine what it feels like, or I'm so sorry that you've been having such a bad week, or even, how has it been like for you? Avoid suggesting solutions to medical problems. You are not there to have all the answers. You might want to go home and research resources that can help your client or even brainstorm with your faculty and staff members and fellow students about potential sources or referrals. But it is okay if you don't have all the answers. Being a friend and helper is valuable in itself. You can offer to help your client call the provider to ask a question and take notes during the call rather than providing your own solutions. Thank your client for sharing. Be sure to recognize your client for the opportunity they're giving you.
We don't expect that you'll encounter a major emergency during a client visit, but let's talk about what to do just in case. If you're ever visiting a client and he or she has a medical emergency, call 911 and then your client's emergency contact. You are not meant to be a first responder. Do what you would do if your family or friend had an emergency. Just call for help as soon as you can. Call your Lori's Hands contact to report the situation. Your client may live in a community you are not familiar with or are used to visiting. When we are in a new place, it is normal to wonder what to expect or to feel uncertain. Safety is extremely important to Lori's Hands. That's why we screen every student and the client before they are able to participate in our program. At the time of enrollment, a Lori's Hands staff person visits the client in person to complete a home safety check, and every client undergoes a criminal background check before students are able to make visits. That means we have already been to the client's home and have spent time talking and getting to know them. We are confident they are a good fit for our program. As you know, when you are making client visits, you are required to do so in pairs. This is for a couple of reasons. First, it can help foster more conversation and a comfortable dynamic. But also, and importantly, it is for your safety and the safety of our clients. You should never visit a client alone as part of the Lori's Hands program. When working in any community setting, it is important to be aware of your surroundings and take note of anything around you that seems concerning or out of the ordinary. Many of your clients have been living in their house and neighborhoods for years. They are your best resources when it comes to feeling comfortable in a new neighborhood. When making home visits, here are some quick safety tips. Call your client before you leave for the visit. Check with them to see if they'd also advise you to call when you arrive to be let into their building or to let them know you'll be knocking on their door shortly. Before your visit, ask your client about the best place to park and the easiest way to get into their home or building. Make sure to lock your car and bring in any valuables when you are visiting. Make your visits during the daytime. Always wear your Lori's Hands t-shirt. Arrive at your client's home with your partner so you are walking into their home or building together. Keep alert while you're walking so you are aware of your surroundings. For example, don't look at your phone. If you are ever feeling unsafe during your visit, you do not need to stay. Lori's Hands does not require student participants to stay in situations where they feel unsafe or uncomfortable. If you feel this way, leave and call your Lori's Hands contact. As you get to know your client, Remember that every community is unique and has developed into what it is today as a result of a multitude of factors, many of which are outside of the control of residents. In 1938, the Homeowners Loan Corporation created residential security maps for over 200 American cities. These maps were used to analyze the risk level of lending for mortgages. Neighborhoods were labeled as either green, best, blue, desirable, yellow, declining, or red, hazardous, based on things like average neighborhood income, home quality, and race. Non-white communities tended to be labeled as red. They were redlined, and as a result, experienced lower levels of economic investment. This is structural racism, the interaction of processes and structures that reinforce racial inequities. Although this practice was outlawed in 1968 with the passing of the Fair Housing Act, it has had a lasting impact on cities around the nation, including where we serve. Today, neighborhoods that were labeled as green or blue have higher average household incomes and lower rates of violent crimes compared to neighborhoods that were labeled as yellow or red. Neighborhoods that were red or yellow lined in the 1930s continue to have lower rates of homeownership, higher rates of poverty, and higher levels of neighborhood decay defined by vacant buildings and substandard housing today. Where someone lives can play a major role in their health and in the development of chronic illness. The built environment determines our access to healthy food options, quality healthcare, physical activity levels, and exposure to toxins, all of which are factors that contribute to an individual's health and well-being. Genetics and behavioral patterns also play a role in the development of disease. Risk behaviors for chronic illness include tobacco use, poor nutrition, physical inactivity, and excessive alcohol use. As you get to know your client, keep an open mind and consider how all of these factors intersect to affect their health and well-being. The more you learn about your client, their life, and their community, the better you'll be able to understand who they are and how you can support them. We encourage you to consider their neighborhood and how it might be impacting their health. Pay attention to things like housing conditions, location of grocery stores and types of foods sold, amount of green space, number of liquor stores and stores advertising cigarettes, and schools. As a Lori's Hands student, it is important for you to pay attention to where your clients live so you can appreciate the diversity of the neighborhood's strengths and barriers it presents to health and well-being. As a student, you can play a significant role in helping your client find and access resources so they can age independently in the community of their preference. Keep an open mind as you get to know your client and their community. We all have a lot to learn from one another, especially from people who have different lived experiences than ours. Take time to listen to and appreciate the transitions your client and their community have gone through.
By joining Lori's Hands, you are agreeing to make a weekly visit to your assigned client. Your visit will always take place with your student partner and will typically last 1 to 2 hours unless otherwise specified by your Lori's Hands contact. Your consistency with visits is extremely important. As you get to know your client, you'll begin to see what they truly depend on you, whether it's for instrumental support or social companionship. If you cannot make your visit, communicate with your student partner and your client. But don't wait until the last minute. If your client was expecting you to go grocery shopping for them today, it may be a few days before they can find someone to fill in for you, and that may leave them without essentials. Try to reschedule your visit for another day or time during that week. If that doesn't work, reach out to your Lori's Hands contact to try and find a substitute. If your schedule changes during the semester and you need to take a break from participating, communicate your change of plans to your Lori's Hands contact as soon as you can. Remember though, many of our clients have compromised immune systems or may be more susceptible to complications from routine viruses. If you are sick, try to reschedule your visit or make a plan to provide support that does not include direct contact with your client, such as by dropping off groceries on their doorstep or arranging a Zoom call to provide social support. Finally, after every visit or phone call, don't forget to log your activities using the Lori's Hands app. This is extremely important in enabling Lori's Hands to monitor our services. App records are also what we'll use to verify your service hours should you ever need them in the future.
According to recent AARP surveys and other studies, 80 to 90% of Americans would prefer to age in place. This is why Lori's Hands is so valuable. People want to utilize resources that help them age safely and independently in their own homes, whenever possible. Historically, resources were invested in institutional care, but in recent years, there have been a social and political push towards community-based resources. If an older adult or person with chronic illness is discharged from the hospital, he or she needs to have community resources in place to make sure that they are safe and cared for following the discharge. This is particularly important for people who are living alone or who have limited support systems. For example, if a person is discharged and doesn't have a way of getting to the pharmacy, their new drug regimen becomes useless. A student participant who picks up a prescription, fresh food that was suggested as part of their new diet, or assists with other basic needs can help a person regain or maintain their health. National data show that the percentage of adults readmitted to hospitals within 30 days of discharge is as high as 20%. Having community programs such as Lori's Hands in place could potentially reduce skyrocketing hospital readmission rates. The US spends more per capita on patients than any other country, but has worse health outcomes than most industrialized nations. We need to address that paradox. Something has to change within our healthcare system, and an important piece of that puzzle is giving students the opportunity to go out into the community and work with patients before joining the workforce. By volunteering in the community and witnessing these different challenges faced by providers and patients, students will develop understanding and insight into how to address these problems as professionals. In addition to assisting our clients and learning more about their experiences and the community we share, it's also important that students gather together to discuss observations, learnings, and unanswered questions. Lori's Hands hosts a number of different education and discussion opportunities throughout this semester. Please consider participating to support your overall experience. Thank you for your support of Lori's Hands and for watching this video. We are thrilled that you are joining our team to support our mission of helping make lives better in small, consistent ways.